You're listening to Our Space with Matt Batiste.
Hey, thanks for listening to another episode of Our Space. Today, we're going to be talking to A Story Told. They're a pop rock trio from West Virginia. If you haven't heard of these guys before, they're basically like Blink-182 and Taylor Swift if they had a baby. We're going to talk about things like love songs, heartbreaks, Warped Tour, and more. But first, I want to remind you that we've officially hit thousands of listeners, which is a major milestone for any podcast. But a lot of people are listening without actually following or subscribing to the show. So please do that real quick. It helps the show, which also helps the artists that we're talking to, most of which are up and coming. So by supporting the show, you're also helping support the scene. All right, let's welcome the boys. We have Josh and Alex from A Story Told today. Welcome. How you doing?
We're good. Thanks for having us. How you doing?
Thanks for coming on the show. Can you actually explain to me what a pepperoni roll is? Because I was like looking at West Virginia foods. I'm like, I want to talk to these guys about like what's something West Virginia that I can ask them because I've never been. And you know, apparently your national food is a pepperoni roll. And I'm like, this sounds really interesting. But what exactly is it?
Have you had one?
I've never had one. No.
Well, I feel like there's statewide debate on like what the true pepperoni roll is. You know, because with pepperoni you can have slices. You can have sticks. There can be cheese or not cheese, but it's basically a roll with, it's literally a roll with pepperoni baked into it. So
it's kind of like pigs in a blanket.
No,
because the roll is really the roll is really soft.
Yeah.
So it's not like, I don't know.
It's literally a roll with pepperoni in it. But there's there's pepperoni roll competitions like throughout the state, like where they're baking and who has the best roll and stuff like that. So, but they're good. You gotta, I don't know if you can find one there. You might just have to like make it and see what happens, but they're legit.
I might just have to come out to West Virginia and try one.
There you go. No sauce, though. It's not like pizza.
I do want to know about A Story Told. How did you guys come to be? What is your story? How did you guys, form as a band and decide that you want to do the type of music that you're doing?
Yeah, at this point, man, we've been a band for almost 10 years at this point. So that story's kind of... It's been a long road. There's a lot of pieces to that story. But honestly, it's like, I think like when I think of our band, I think we're just huge fans of music and huge fans of how like music has impacted us. And we also really enjoy like the songwriting process. So I think we've kind of used this band to really fuse all of that together and kind of present it to the world. As kind of our little thing. So yeah, I think it just stems from us just being like huge fans of music and really enjoying the songwriting process. Now we've put out 4 full-length records. We've toured a bunch. We've played a bunch of festivals, and kind of here we are still doing the thing 10 years later. So it's kind of wild to think about.
It sounds like the process is what you love the most. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. Now, when you're writing your songs, where do you draw the most inspiration from for your music?
I think that, and I think this latest record is like the best testament to that. I think it's really always been where we are in our lives currently. I think each album you can listen to and you can honestly get an inside look into how we're progressing as individuals. Like Josh and I went to high school together and we kind of re-linked up like in the college years to kind of form the band. And it's just so funny. You listen to the full length record, it sounds nothing and says nothing like that. And I think that that's like a beautiful thing for us is I think our fans have gotten to grow up with us as well. And so we've always wanted to speak our truth in what our lives, because really like your story is like the best one you have to tell because nobody else is like yours. And so that's really what inspiration wise, I think that we've always just really tried to be honest and be open and get that all out in an album, in a song. So, yeah.
And is there anything that you do when it comes to the songwriting process that really, I think, makes a story told song and a story told song? Like, is there any little signature? Like, what would you say your signature thing is when it comes to songwriting that you really need to put into each and every single song?
I think we are just huge fans of pop music. So I feel like for it to actually be like an AST song, it's got to have that pop sensibility. I think as you listen through like the discography, yes, we are a live band. We play, real drums, real guitars, but I think at the end of the day, we always want it to be like poppy and polished. So I feel like when I think of AST, I think of it as like, yeah, it's kind of like raw, like emotional, like real instruments, but it's a very like polished and poppy package to it. So that's what I think of, like when it's done, if it's catchy, if it's stuck in your head, like I think that's when, okay, that's an AST song.
Yeah, you're doing something where it feels like you're putting your raw emotion into it, but you're polishing the actual sound of it.
Yeah. And I feel like we do, or I like to think that we do a good job of it, even though we strive to be like for like a poppy, have the pop sensibility. I feel like we don't want to do anything like super cheesy or like super like predictable. I think that's when we know it's like, yeah, there is emotion behind it, but you can sing along to it. So
yeah, it sounds like you're not it's a pop song, but with almost like less sugar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's a great way to put it.
Perfect.
Yeah, looking towards making those things that are catchy and still have that emotion where they can be relatable. So it's kind of like crossing that line between raw and polished at the same time.
Right. And I think that's a very fine line to be like completely honest with music. So yeah, I think we try to stay on the right side of it. So
I was going to say that sounds like it's a balancing act.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because, like
constant.
Alex can probably speak more to it. It's like, to make things catchy, you have to use like certain words, certain rhymes. But, at the end of the day, we don't want it to be like you said, like watered down or like too sugary. We want it to have like emotion, because I think that's when it hits harder, when, yes, you can sing along to it, but you can also like relate to it too.
So Alex, how do you dance around that and find that perfect balance?
That's a really good question. I mean, I've told a lot of friends that are musicians as well. I mean, we've had this conversation a lot, but I think that like undeniably as an artist, like it's you have to acknowledge that there is a line, because it's not saying that every single time an artist only writes from the heart and they don't care about how catchy it is, that no one will ever hear it. But, you have to have an audience in order to, I think having an audience is important as a songwriter for people to relate and listen to, not so much about growing and being the biggest band in the world, but there's definitely a line. And I really just think through time, it becomes less of a conflict, because you become so used to like finding and writing that line. Undeniably, choruses have to be catchier, but I think for me, like verses are just like word dumps. And there's a lot of trial and error. You might replace a word here and there, but it's always in the back of your mind. But like Josh was saying, I think we'd rather be on the right side of the line where we're honest, and instead of trying to write something that just is catchy, empty or something like that. So
are you trying to avoid like the cliches, like, I got to leave this town and things like that?
Right. Yeah. I think that it can always be well placed. But I think that, I think throughout our discography, there's probably some times where like, if I'm going to do it, I almost like it's followed up or led into almost like it's sarcastic or like making fun of it in a way that's what I arrived at. I don't know. I think that when people are really honest with themselves, and especially when you're trying to like write a song and write that line, it's like, sometimes it's okay to like make fun of yourself or be sarcastic about it. So yeah, I don't think I have anything that's incredibly off limits. I think it's kind of like a trust your gut and analyze sort of deal.
And spending time with experience, you guys have been doing this for a very long time, so you have a lot of experience writing music.
Wildly, yes. Close to 10 years, like Josh said.
Do you guys write music for other people or just AST?
I have not. Josh, have you?
No, I've done some. So we like self-produce everything as well. So I've done some production, but in terms of songwriting, I feel like, I don't know. Alex and I talk about this a lot. Like, are we like a one trick pony kind of deal? Like, would we even be good at like writing songs with other people? That doesn't mean like we would be opposed of doing it, but honestly, like the opportunity hasn't like presented itself in terms of like writing songs. But I feel like that's something that we think about, like thinking about like the longevity of like songwriters, artists. Like I wouldn't be surprised if we go that route in the future. So.
Well, you guys have also done a stint on Warped Tour. How was that?
Yeah, so this is a while ago, obviously Warped Tour is not around. But it was kind of wild because I think both of us and our friends grew up going to Warped Tour, to actually be like on the other side of it, on the other side of the gates before the show opens. Like it's just kind of wild. And then your heroes kind of turn into your peers, that kind of deal. It was just kind of like a really surreal experience, kind of like a full circle moment, as an artist that grew up going to those things, and then finally playing it. It was super surreal.
Well, like I said, like you said, I can imagine we grew up all going to Warped Tour and then kind of getting the opportunity to be able to play Warped Tour before it stopped.
Mm-hmm.
Is something that you'll forever be able to say, hey, we played at Warped Tour,
right?
And I feel like that's like, it's a nice notch to have on your belt. It's a cool thing for the resume. It's a cool thing to say. It's a cool experience, because now we're all looking back with Warped Tour sort of being like the pinnacle of festivals and tours and
Right.
all of that. So, you guys get to say, hey, we played Warped Tour. No one can, like that. Like that's a really cool notch on your belt. So that's why I just wanted to ask you, as a band and as fans, like, was there anything about Warped Tour that you remember that you can look back on and be like, yeah, like we did this and that was like a really cool experience? Like, what about Warped Tour what was the coolest part about playing Warped Tour towards the end there?
I think just being like, I don't know, it was such a centralized festival for this scene of music. When you think of when I think of this type of music, I think of like the Warped Tour scene. Like, I think that it's almost like the genre of music is like Warped Tour music. So I think just being involved with like being in the core of all of that, I think like punk rock, emo, metal, all that stuff like stems from the Warped Tour scene. To actually be like in the middle of it all, it's kind of just like surreal. And I think it, like you said, it's cool that we got to experience it. Obviously, we'd like to do it every year since then. Obviously that's not possible, but to have that like on the resume, I think it's really cool, especially since we came from that scene of music. I think our band has kind of drifted a little bit away from it, but I think like knowing that's kind of like the heart and soul of this band, and being involved in something so meaningful to that type of music, I think it's a really cool thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And now you guys are getting ready for a bunch of other festivals. You've played a bunch of festivals, obviously, since then. And I just saw that you're going to be on the West Virginia is for Lovers Fest with bands like Under Oath, Thursday, Hawthorne Heights. Like, how did that feel as a band working so hard over the past decade to be, on a bill like that at home? Like, what was going through your head as you got that call saying, hey, we want you on the bill?
Yeah. I was honestly just talking to Alex about this. It's like, just one day we see in the DMs like a message from like Hawthorne Heights. I was like, well, like, if they're coming calling, like you got to do it. But I do think like, I think West Virginia is easily overlooked in a bunch of different ways. So for them to put on a festival to, kind of showcase that, yes, like, there is music, or music means something in all parts of the world. It may not be your LA, your Nashville, your New York, but there is meaning to music across the globe. But yeah, when we got that offer, I think all of us were like really stoked. We knew it was going to be a really big deal, and for it to be like right in our backyard, it's like it just made sense. Like we've grown up in that world, and to finally like be on a bill, next to kind of like heroes that we like. Like I was telling Alex, I was like, I used to play like in an Under Oath cover band, like back in high school or middle school or whatever. So to like be on the same stage, it's kind of like surreal. I mean, that's a show that all the festival dates is kind of like, well, we would just go to it if it was happening, but to be playing it, it's kind of like, makes it even more special.
Yeah, it sounds like it would be a lot more special having that flip, right? To go from, we would probably be buying tickets to be in the stands watching these bands to we're going to be backstage, after playing our set watching Under Oath.
Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy.
And have you had moments like that before? Like, what has been that moment for you up until now where you've kind of looked back and been like, crap, I didn't realize I can't believe we're actually here after all of the times that we've, either seen this band or what band has that been for you where you're like, well, we're actually doing this. Like we're playing a show with this band. We're at this festival with these people. Have you had that like moment click yet where you're like, this is working for us. This is awesome. Like, we're here right now after all the work we've put in.
Yeah, I think this band has just been such a slow and steady process. Like we talked about, it's been like 10 years. So I feel like anytime, especially being 10 years in, anytime opportunities like this do come about, it's like, wow, like, this actually does mean something. I mean, we've played shows or like festivals with like bands that I like adored growing up, like the Starting Line, the Dangerous Summer. Like those bands really meant something to me, and they still do. They're still some of my favorite bands. But to like think that we have like created something that might be as impactful to somebody else, where they're kind of like putting it on the same showcase, is just like, it's mind blowing, seriously. And that 10 years in, opportunities are still coming. Things are still getting bigger and better. It's truly like a bunch of full circle moments wrapped up into 10 years of history. So it's kind of hard to really like wrap your head around that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And well, like you said, slow and steady with the band, but that usually wins a race. And have you noticed, by playing with these bands and by doing this, you've been creating more of an impactful relationship with your fans, having that more of a slow and steady type pace as a band?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even just like thinking about this headlining tour coming up, it's like there are going to be people there that have supported this band for like, almost 10 years. And that's a long time to be dedicated to something and still like, still finding so much meaning in it and wanting to support it. Cause like people's attention spans are so short these days where, they might love something one week and moved on the next week. So for somebody to still be support that next release, support that next show, support that next tour, it's really wild.
And those relationships will last a lot longer and be a lot sturdier than the people who are here today and gone tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. Alex, I feel like you have a good quote that you got handed down to you about this.
Oh, about like the industry is a pendulum, as fast as you swing in is as fast as you swing out. So, I mean, that's always kind of been our motto with this band, is like, it gives our lives meaning. This is why we do it. We're not trying to get in quick and have our moment of glory. It's like our heart's in the place where it gives our lives meaning. And for fans, and like Josh just mentioned, we have fans that have been on the ride for close to 10 years, and like they've grown up with us as we have. And I think that that's like the most rewarding aspect of it, no matter the size or scale this band ever achieves. And we've always really valued our fans and spent the time with them. And yeah.
So with this tour you mentioned, are there any spots along it that you are particularly excited about?
Honestly, all of it. I think we're doing some major markets for this run because it's been a minute since we've been out there with, the state of the world, just being so, I guess, focused on the songwriting portion of this band, where we're finally getting back out there, hitting some major markets. Honestly, like all of them, I think there is something special in each date, and it's almost like it's packaging all those special moments, all those special times, all those special cities, special fans into one big thing. So I think all of it, to be honest, I know that's maybe cliche, but obviously there's some like cities and like things to do and people to see and food and all that good stuff in each of the cities. But I think in totality, we're just like really stoked on the whole thing.
Yeah, of course. What I guess city are you most excited for to go visit as, you know, not so much of a band to play, because of course you're going to be excited for each and every single show, but as a band to kind of go and hang out or kind of wander around a little bit for the times in between tour dates that you do have to actually wander around?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we have an off day in Nashville. So I think when you think of music, that's like the epicenter of it, especially more recently, how it's kind of branched out into like the pop rock, you know, it's not just country music. So I love Nashville. I'm excited
Chicago too.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have a lot of friends in Chicago and a lot of mutual friends that are in bands and stuff like that. And, you know, like what Josh was saying about touring, it's like we haven't hit these major markets. We don't hit them a super ton, you know, we don't tour a ton. And so I think it always feels like a homecoming. And at this point, I think the shows are going to really feel like that because it's been a few years. And so I think Chicago is going to be a great one. We've played Chicago twice and I've never like spent significant time downtown. So I think we're getting an Airbnb and we're just going to like see it all. So
That's really exciting. I'm so excited for you guys and, you know, to be out on this tour, headlining and getting out there. And of course, touring for a band is definitely important. I do want to talk about another thing that I feel like is pretty important to a lot of bands these days: social media. How do you feel as artists about social media and, you know, using it as a marketing tool?
I think it's a double-edged sword for sure. Like I think as consumers, you know, people have a love-hate relationship with it. I think as creators, that's even more. You have a love-hate relationship with it. I think Josh and I talk all the time. It's like, God, I wish we could just like not have to do some of the things that we do. But it just makes sense in the industry these days. And so, but with anything, you get used to it, making specific types of content that you know will do well, and that's what in a lot of ways is how your music's going to reach audiences. It's not the same anymore, and so I would describe it as a love-hate relationship. So I always say if the band didn't exist, I wouldn't be on it, but obviously that's hard to say when you don't really know. But I think it's more important than ever for individuals to kind of like have their own rules on consumption, and same for creators. Like it's really difficult to make content and then really be checking it all in the numbers, and you know it can really get to you and all those things. So I think just having a healthy relationship with it is very important and not talked about enough. So,
and how do you manage that as a band? And then social media can really feel like a full-time job at times too. And then, you know, most bands that I talk to also have full-time jobs, so that you're juggling a full-time job with a band and writing music and recording music and playing it live and going on tour. Plus also, you know, now social media feels like another thing to do as a band. So how do you sort of manage all of that as a band?
I think you just have to be really intentional and organized with all of it, because, you know, I think like you were just saying, as an artist, you're not just like, you know, getting up there and playing a guitar. You're writing the songs, you're producing the songs, you're booking the tours, you're promoting the band, you're marketing it. So I think it's just figuring out like, okay, what are all the puzzle pieces and how do we put them together where like you don't get completely burned out with it, and that there is, you know, it can be sustainable and where you actually like enjoy it. Like Alex was saying, it's like, we do have a love-hate relationship with social media, but I think we have finally got to the point to figure out like, okay, what excites us with social media and how can we, you know, translate that with what we're trying to do. Because like the music itself, it's like, we don't want to put something out there that doesn't feel like us. So I feel like with social media, we've had to really figure out like, okay, how do we want to present ourselves? How do we make it feel like authentic, but also like effective? And that takes time to kind of like, trial and error and really be intentional about like figuring that out. But I think we've kind of gotten in a good spot where, okay, this is how we kind of want to present the band on socials. And this is kind of how we're going to be like organized doing it. So I think it's just honestly just being like super organized with it, being intentional and just staying on top of it, honestly. And obviously there is a level of having to kind of go with the flow, so to speak, with socials. I mean, that's like with everything. Everything's changing so quickly. You kind of have to just stay on top of it. But I think it's important to kind of stay true to yourself in the meantime. So
it sounds to me that social media, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds to me that social media is almost like the same as writing a song, in the process of having to be intentional and having to be organized with it and put the right amount of, pizzazz into it and creativity and all of that. Would you say that's correct?
I would say more or less. Yeah. I think we leave a lot of room for kind of the creative process, kind of like across the board. I definitely think that Josh makes a good point where it took us some time to kind of find our lane with social media and ultimately like what we're comfortable with as sharing or sharing as individuals that reflects the social and the music. So not for things to be so methodical. So we try not to be as much as we can, but I definitely think with social, we just kind of have recently found our lane with the content that we're making and what we're comfortable with. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And talk to me about your latest song. It's been an absolute banger so far. And this is a little bit of a different, I guess, avenue for you, writing a love song and a perfect love song. I know a lot of your music has kind of been more about the heartbreak of things. But, what did you guys really want to accomplish with the writing of this one?
Yeah, I really think the title like perfectly describes what exactly it is we were trying to do. I was starting to write a verse for this song, starting to write the song, and it felt like a love song. And I was like, I don't know how to do this. And so, you listen to famous love songs and you're like, yeah, I mean, this makes sense. That type of thing. And it's like, well, what if the hook is, how do you write a love song? And I think that it also translates into kind of like your life as well. Like when how do I write a love song, but also how do I accept this part of my life where I embrace like being loved and that type of thing. And you're not so like, oh, well, things that we kind of talked about in the past. So I think it was kind of like this perfect capture of a moment where you're really starting to learn and figure out what that feels like and what that looks like.
And what's the main difference between writing a breakup song and a love song?
Being mad and being happy.
Do you find it's harder to write songs when you're happy?
I think so. I mean, as crazy as that sounds, I think that that's part of it as well. Like I can't speak for every artist, but I know for me, like you almost want to cling to your damage, because I think for me, it's what made so much sense in my development as like an artist and a songwriter, is I knew how to talk about it. I knew how to say what I wanted to say about it. And so I think that has so much to do with the new song as well. Narratively, is this is a new feeling. This is a new thing. Like I almost don't feel like myself anymore. Like I feel like I just lost all my superpowers and now I'm trying to figure it out.
It kind of sounds like, writing songs can be therapy for a lot of artists. I know when I was, growing up and playing guitar, like I would play guitar and write songs myself, particularly when I was angry, and it was like therapy, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with, going to therapy. It's like those sessions always feel a lot more healing when you're really mad or really upset or something really bad, happened in your life. And you're like, I'm going to tell my therapist about this and we're going to work through it. And I'm going to leave feeling a little bit better. Right. But when you're having the best day of your life and you wake up and everything is going right, and then you got a therapy session, you go, it's like, I don't know why I'm here today. You know, so do you feel like that can almost be the same feeling when it comes to writing happier songs?
Oh, that's 100% it. You know, I think it's therapeutic for me. I'm sure it is for Josh as well. Like it is the outlet that gives my life meaning, or makes all this stuff makes sense. And so when you sit there and you're like, things are going pretty well, you're like, well, I've never approached it this way. You know, what do I talk about? So, but I think that that's like an exciting opportunity. I mean, as an artist, but as people in general, you know, you don't want to cling to your past and cling to your pain. I mean, they kind of make you who you are, but if you're growing as an individual, then you're growing as an artist as well. And I think that it's a scary, but also like exciting position to be in, because you can take everything you had and kind of change it and learn in this new type of way.
And if you're feeling happy, there's no reason why we should be suppressing that for the art, right?
Right. Exactly. But, you know, that's the things that you think, you know, you're like, what, you know, you have to convince yourself and be excited about that. And that, oh, people like to hear happy music. People like to know you're well, and that things are, you know what I'm saying? Like, but that's quite a transition and realization. So
what are your happy songs? Not as a band, but the songs that you like to listen to when you're having the best day, sun is shining, you know, you got a fresh pot of coffee on, you're going to, you know, you're getting your favorite meal, having the best day of your life. What song are you playing?
I feel like it's got to be Feel Bad, right, Josh?
Our song or somebody else's song?
Somebody else's song.
Oh.
You know, what are you throwing on? You throwing on Walking on Sunshine or what?
Mm-hmm. What are you throwing on, Alex?
I don't know. We were just talking about, I think it was a week ago today. I was like driving out to the farm or something like that, and I threw on the Forget It Not Slow Down Relient K record. I think it just, there's happy places and happy moments of music, and that's like the beauty of it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else like my go-to happy records.
I swear when the sun starts shining, that like, or the Enema record by Blink, it's like, man, like that's my feel good music. Like this is like it. So I think that would be mine.
Absolutely. And so do you ever look to those types of songs and be like, yeah, let's write a song like this?
Maybe we should.
Yeah, maybe we should start doing some more research on the music that makes us happy.
Because I'm just wondering, you know, do we have more happy music coming out of you guys?
I definitely think so, but I think it will be happy, but it will also be the journey to like accepting happiness as well, which I think is interesting and messy. And you know what I'm saying? Like, I think that really nothing is off limits as far as kind of the things that we want to talk about and say, because, you know, a lot of us go through the same types of things, and really there's really no lane that I don't feel like someone hasn't traveled and, oh, that would make sense. Like this, I feel the exact same way. So I don't think that there's really a one topic in that journey that we focus on. I think it's the whole thing.
And it's still staying on brand with everything you've done. You're just kind of adding a little bit of extra spice into the mix.
Yeah.
What else can we expect from you guys from this year? We've already talked about the tours or new song. Is there an EP or an album in the works? Is there some other festivals that are yet to be announced that we don't need to announce them here on the show? But, you know, like, do we have more coming? What are you most excited for 2024?
I mean, I always say like we're a band that like doesn't slow down, that doesn't like to just sit around. So yeah, we just put out our 4th full length back in October, and it's like, I mean, we just released a new song, and I think in terms of like music, the music's going to keep on coming. Like, will it be LP number 5? I don't know. But I think it's just, we just love the process so much that there is really there's no indication that this thing's going to slow down anytime soon. So I think it's just, seeing like what opportunities are out there and what feels good, what makes the most sense, and if it makes the most sense at the right time. And so I think in terms of things to be excited about, I think definitely more touring. We're stoked on the new record. We think it's a very much live record. So we want to present that. This run is more focused on East Coast, Midwest. So we would like to get, on the other side of the country, in some parts, we'd love to get in some different parts of the world, to be completely honest, but then also new music.
So you got a lot in store with this tour, with music, and no signs of slowing down, which I love to hear. Hey, you guys as a band, you guys work so hard. Obviously, you're constantly keeping things moving, and a big part of the show is giving love to artists like you who are constantly working so hard and pushing forward. And so I like to ask everybody to share a little bit of that love, for bands like yourself and other bands that are working so hard. So I like to ask everybody who their favorite up and coming artist is right now.
Ooh, my favorite I feel like he's not really. I think he's doing pretty well. I'm obsessed with PD right now, but I feel like he's kind of big. But in terms of like up and coming artists, there's a band that we love. They're called Shallow Pools. They just make really great pop music that I can't wait to see where they go from here. So that would be kind of a band that we're really stoked on, that is up and coming, that we see big things coming from them. So,
and what about you, Alex?
That's a good one, Josh. We're big fans. It's not a band, it's an artist. Her name's Abby Holiday. We're big fans of her. I feel like she's making incredible music, stuff that haven't heard before. And so I think that would be mine.
We'll have to check them out. I appreciate you sharing those suggestions. So if you're listening, go and check out these suggestions. Of course, go and check out A Story Told if you haven't so far. And thank you both for coming on the show today.
Hey, thank you. We appreciate the time. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you for listening to Our Space with Matt Batisse. If you enjoyed yourself, please support the show by subscribing and leaving a review.